The PFL regular season number 4 is going to be taking place this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The prelims will be on ESPN Plus, and the US broadcast will be on ESPN for the main card as well. It should be a pretty good card. I mean, like, you've got the big names there for the featherweights and also for the light heavyweights. A lot of the PFL fighters have tested positive, so they're kind of out, and there's a lot of short notice replacements going on. I will talk about that when we get there as well. And as you can see with the fights, it seems like a lot of fights are set up for the favorites to win. So there's kind of a lot going on in this card, and I will go over it, and I do look forward to going over it. And it should be a pretty good card. On a Thursday, it is worth noting it's on a Thursday, not like a Friday night like they normally have. So yeah, I'll just get into the predictions now. So the first fight on the Tapology card is Flores versus Dan Spohn, but I do believe that the roster or the way that the fights are kind of listed will probably change as the week goes on, because this is a short notice replacement. I believe Dan Spohn is actually stepping in on short notice for Rob Wilkinson, so Flores probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief. But if you actually do look into the fight, I think that Dan Spohn, potentially even at this point in his career, probably is the better striker out of the two. And if I didn't watch his fight against Emiliano Sordi, I probably would have picked Dan Spohn. I know that sounds absolutely insane. We don't have odds for this fight, but I'm assuming Dan Spohn is going to be a pretty sizable underdog, and I probably would have taken that. I probably would have, I'm going to be honest. But when I watched this Emiliano Sordi fight, although he did manage to win the third round, Spohn was gassed out in the second rounds, man. They had a really intense fight. The whole fight was quite grueling, really. But after the first round, Spohn was tired. And Sordi's not really a guy that's known for great cardio either. And Sordi was kind of able to show that he had the better cardio in the fight. And Spohn really took that second round off, man. He was gassed out. And then he really did manage to have a lot of success in the third. And he did win that round to win the fight, because the 9 round was in the first round. But if you go over Flores, you guys know I don't rate Flores too highly. I don't really know how to feel about him. He seemingly is a wrestler. He doesn't seem to be the best striker. I watched this fight against Ryan Parker, and Ryan Parker, he hit him with a couple of good shots, man. He really did, and he's 5-4, so he's not, like, doesn't have the best record in the world, really. And he was able to tag Flores at least a couple of times in that fight. Now, Ryan Parker did end up gassing out from Flores, taking him down and working against the cage, but you know, it's still concerning things to see, and that's why I did pick Delan Monte to beat him. But Flores ultimately was able to kind of initiate his wrestling, work his game, clinch up against the cage, get takedowns if he needed to. His shorts were falling down half the fight, which just kind of made the fight a lot less interesting for me personally. But yeah, I think Flores wins. It's not a confident pick. I recommend you stay away from this fight. I think you should not bet this fight. Unless Dan Spohn's like an insane underdog, maybe you could bet that, but it's probably not really under my recommendation. I'm going to pick Flores' decision because I have seen Dan Spohn have pretty bad takedown defense in the past. I mean, Marthin Hamlet took him down, controlled him for the entire first round, and then subbed him immediately into the second round. Sordi was able to have success in the grappling. I didn't actually find this Daquan Townsend fight, but I mean, that's actually the only win that he's had in a long time, so I was actually only watching losses of Dan Spohn, but Dan Spohn wasn't looking too bad in a lot of these losses. I do think he probably will be the better striker in the matchup, but short notice, Dan Spohn, questionable cardio from the Sordi fight. I'm going to go with Flores to kind of grind out at a very boring decision, grinding up against the cage and the clinch, getting takedowns in control. There's no odds out for this fight. I don't think it's going to be that great. I think you should stay away from that money-wise. You should probably stay away from this fight money-wise as well. It is a 2-0 prospect in Alexei Pergande taking on Akeem Bashir. And I couldn't find too much on Akeem Bashir's MMA career. I did find out that he's like part of like an IKF World Muay Thai Championship. I don't know if that's like a really high-level Muay Thai, but it does seem like he has got a lot of Muay Thai experience, and it has actually progressed quite well over to an MMA career, where he did manage to go 7-3 as an amateur, and then he managed to go 3-1 as a pro, which is where we are now, taking on Alexei Pergande, which kind of seems like a guy that PFL's trying to build up as like one of their own prospects, kind of like Bellator does, where they take debuting guys and just build them up in their promotion. Seems like PFL's trying to do the same thing. Alexei Pergande, I do rate the haircut that he's got. I mean, when he was about my age, so a couple of years younger than he is now, he was rocking a mullet. You guys know I love a good mullet. But I don't know if Pergande still got the mullet. If he does have the mullet, he probably does win the fight. But in all seriousness, though, he seems to be a wrestler and he seems to be a grappler. And when he does wrestle, he doesn't seem to be the most offensive grappler. He seems to be very position over submission. But when he is on top, he is still working for the submissions as well. He likes to be on top and he likes to control his fights. Both of his wins have come, I was going to say by decision, but he did manage to submit Joe Ham, but he was going for the arm triangle choke ASAP pretty much in the fight, but being safe on top, kind of just dominated with control. And that's probably what he's going to do here. He's taking on a Muay Thai striker. I think Pergande's going to get him down. I think Pergande's going to wrestle probably ASAP, and I think he's probably going to win by submission or decision. So I've got Pergande in this matchup. He's actually a massive favorite as well. Minus 325. Do you really want to be laying that kind of money down on Pergande? Probably not. I think there's better picks on the card, personally. Abby Montes taking on Brandy Hester. Brandy Hester, she has got no MMA fights as an amateur or a pro. And I did check, she's got nothing. This is like her first MMA fight, but I did look into it. She's also got a Muay Thai background. But once again, I couldn't find too much. Like, I just found this really long article. If you search Brandy Hester, you'll find it too. That's kind of like the extent of where my research really went. And it seems like she's been training Muay Thai for a long time, and she's been training MMA for a few years. I don't know how old she is, but I'm assuming she's going to be somewhat old, because I read somewhere as well that she started Muay Thai in like 2008. So that's a long time ago, so she could be mid-30s or so when she's taking on the 23-year-old up-and-coming PFL prospect in Abby Montes, who was just thrown in the deep end. She really was. You know, she went on a 3-fight win streak to start off her career, which is great. She fought Clarissa Shields. She probably did win that fight. I mean, she took down Clarissa Shields. It was somewhat close, but, you know, she managed to wrestle Clarissa Shields. And then she fought Elena Kolesnik, who was a pretty good fighter. Oh, I believe she actually recently beat Aspen Ladd. Elena Kolesnik did. So, you know, that's the kind of level of competition she just lost to then. And then Marina Moknatina, a former Sambo European champion, I believe at one point a Sambo world champion. She just got thrown in the deep end, and now she's taking on a debuting fighter who I know nothing about, who most people know absolutely nothing about. All I know is that she's got a Muay Thai background. That is it. And I'm picking Abby Montes for that reason. I think she can out-wrestle Brandy Hester in this fight. She probably should be able to win a decision. It depends on how good Brandy Hester's training is, though, because we're talking about a girl that genuinely does have high-level experience, and those two losses were split decisions, two great fighters. Marina Moknatina is a great fighter. Elena Kolesnik is a great fighter. So, who really knows? Maybe Abby Montes can potentially find a finish, but the odds for this fight are, they're quite crazy. Abby Montes is sitting at about minus 450. Once again, do you want to play that kind of money? Probably not, but she probably should win, and she is my pick in this fight as well. So the next fight on the card is Taylor Johnson taking on Andrew Sanchez at light heavyweight, and I am going to pick Andrew Sanchez in this matchup. He's a very slight favorite, only sitting at minus 150 right now, and Taylor Johnson is plus 120 as the underdog. Taylor Johnson had two PFL Challenger Series fights in 2022 and 2023 earlier this year. He put Trey Williams on skates and then took him down and finished him off pretty quickly after that. There probably were a lot of back of the head shots in there, but that's not my business, that's the referees. And he did beat Alexander Popek by mixing in a lot of strikes, but also getting takedowns. Now, my concern with Taylor Johnson is when he does go for takedowns, he kind of dives for those takedowns from very far away, and they can get defended not super easily, but they can be defended. I feel like Andrew Sanchez probably does have the skill set to defend the takedowns of Taylor Johnson and keep the fight on the feet if he wants it to be there. But that's also the key. If Andrew Sanchez wants to get takedowns, he will get takedowns. Like when he took on Khalil Roundtree Jr., he took him down 6 times to win the Ultimate Fighter. He took down Anthony Smith 4 times. He took down Bruno Silva 7 times before getting KO'd in the 3rd round. He can get takedowns if he wants them. And I feel like taking down Taylor Johnson probably wouldn't be that bad of an idea, because Taylor Johnson's the guy that wants to be on top. And if you can take him down and end up on top, then that wouldn't be too bad of a plan. Now, I do think Sanchez probably should be the better striker in the matchup, but does he get caught or not? Kind of is a question that might play into your mind. You do see that he's got 7 losses. Unfortunately, 5 of those 7 losses are by knockout. and that is something to worry about. Sanchez has been KO'd probably too many times for my liking to kind of trust his ability to keep the fight on the feet. Now, Taylor Johnson, I wouldn't say he's the best striker in the world, but he is powerful. He did put Trey Williams on skates in his last fight a couple of months ago, so his confidence in his hands probably is at an all-time high right now. But I think Sanchez, if he really wants to, he can get the fight to the ground and he can keep the fight on the feet. He can dictate where the fight is, and I am just going to trust him in that fight. Now, he did manage to beat Gabriel in his last fight. Is that the best win in the world? Not necessarily, but Checo is a really good grappler, and it was kind of a bit of a sloppy fight, but Sanchez did manage to win. I'm going to pick Sanchez to win this fight. Probably does go the distance, kind of like the public is picking, and I think it does go the distance, like I just said, for the third time in 10 seconds. Let's move on. Impa Kasanganay taking on Tim Caron. I do believe, once again, this is a short notice replacement, and Impa Kasanganay is taking on a former middleweight in Tim Caron, and he's a massive favourite, man. We're talking about minus 450. And yes, Impa Kasanganay used to fight at 170 pounds. I believe he fought at 170 in his UFC career, and then he moved up to 185 to take on a couple of fighters. And now that he's in the PFL, he's fighting at 205 because they don't have a middleweight division. So Impa Kasanganay is kind of all over the place when it comes to his weight. Now, Tim Caron, you probably don't remember him, but he was on Dana White's Contender Series a pretty long time ago, and he did get beaten up by Jordan Williams in that fight, where Jordan Williams was able to get on top, just control him the entire time, ended up getting TKO'd in the third round. Now, he has fought some pretty good guys since then. He did take on Kyle Stewart, who's a great fighter. Darius Flowers is now in the UFC, but he's serving a USADA suspension, so potentially Flowers was on something in that fight. So who really knows with that fight, but he has gone on a pretty good win streak over pretty good fighters, and most recently over a 4-0 undefeated fighter in Fran Collins, where he managed to submit him. He probably does want the fight on the ground, but if you can get on top of Tim Caron, you can keep him there. He's not too good at getting back up off the ground if you're on top, if that makes any sense. But Impa Kasanganay probably does want to strike with Tim Caron. I feel like Kasanganay is a very adequate striker, but if he wants to, he can grapple as well. He's kind of a very well-rounded fighter like that, and he can dictate where he wants the fight. Is he undersized at 205 pounds? Yes, he is. I really would prefer to see Impa Kasanganay at 185 or even back at 170, but I think that his skills should outskill Tim Caron, and Impa Kasanganay got a very impressive win in his last one over Corey Hendricks, who is a very good fighter who has fought in the PFL before. And that was a good win. He KO'd this guy called Osama Asadi in the first round as well. And it's actually very interesting to know that Impa Kasanganay's last 2 KO wins were the first KO wins of his entire career. He's only ever KO'd 2 guys in his career, and that is Jared Gooden, which is a really good win, and Osama Asadi, which got him into the PFL in the first place, which is great. I'm going to go with Impa by decision here. Maybe I was going to say a KO is likely, but man, Tapology really thinks he finishes Caron. You do have to consider Kasanganay's last 2 KOs. They are a credit to his striking improving for sure, but they are the first 2 KOs of his career. He probably could find another one here. I mean, as a minus 450 favorite, you really would hope that he gets a finish. He probably does find a finish, and I can trust him in this fight. The next one is Marlon Moraes versus Gabriel Alves Braga. I haven't actually looked at the odds. Oh, wow. That's really sad for Marlon Moraes. I don't know if you guys can see that, but if you do look, Marlon Moraes is plus 300 and Gabriel Alves Braga is minus 400. That's just a really big kind of sign of how the public and how the odds makers feel about Marlon Moraes' career at the moment, and that is honestly really sad. It actually really is. And I was going to say, I'm going to pick Gabriel Alves Braga, but I'm not actually that confident in it, because Marlon Moraes, he definitely doesn't have it anymore. He absolutely doesn't. Someone does need to stop him. He's getting KO'd. You know, he got TKO'd by leg kicks in his last one, and it's just too much at this point, man. But the thing is about Marlon Moraes, in my opinion, Brendan Laughnane didn't look that good against Marlon Moraes in his last fight, and maybe that is a credit to Marlon Moraes, maybe finding something in that fight. And the thing is, against Shaman the Rice, before he get KO'd, he was doing good. But against Gabriel Alves Braga as well, I mean, I feel like maybe I'm on an island in this opinion here. Maybe I'm going to get blasted in the comments for this one. I thought he lost to Jesus Pinedo. I really do. I thought Jesus Pinedo won that fight, but before that, he wasn't really beating the best guys, and he wasn't really KOing a lot of guys. I am going to pick him to win this fight. I think it's more competitive than -400, though. Like, I wouldn't just bet Gabriel Alves Braga at -400 just to fade Marlon Moraes. Honestly, I really would probably recommend against doing that, because Marlon Moraes, he's still a top fighter. He still fought Jose Aldo back in the day. He still knocked out Aljamain Sterling, but man, it's just gotten to the point now in his career that it's just sad. It's just sad. I just don't really know what to say. I really don't. Like, it's just Moraes is a skilled fighter, but he just doesn't have it anymore, man. And I mean, Tapology's picking him to lose by KO, but I don't know. Braga, pretty aggressive Muay Thai style. I mean, his fight against Jesus Pinedo was pretty close, but Pinedo's a pretty good striker, very big fighter for the division as well. And I feel like maybe if Gabriel Alves Braga can beat Marlon Moraes, it really would be a pretty good feather in his cap, a pretty good name to put on his career. You know what I mean? He's only 25 years old, taking on a guy like Marlon Moraes who really has seen the highest of the highs. But now he's kind of seen the lowest of the lows. I'm not going to dwell on Marlon Moraes' career for too long. I know that was a really bad breakdown of the fight, but I feel like a lot of people are kind of unanimous in that feeling of, come on, Marlon, like, it's just too much, man. It's just too much at this point. But yeah, he just doesn't have it anymore, man. Maybe he can find something, but I'm not going to believe in Marlon Moraes just to believe in Marlon Moraes. He's got to show me something. And with that being said, Chris Wade taking on Ryoji Kudo. I looked like an idiot in his last fight. Chris Wade, he got dominated by Bubba Jenkins, and I picked Chris Wade to win that fight, and Bubba Jenkins really went out there and dominated Chris Wade, and Chris Wade kind of, I don't know, it's interesting, because they have fought in the past, and I believe Chris Wade, sorry guys, got the better of Bubba Jenkins in that fight, and it was actually a rematch. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He won by decision a while ago, and then they rematched. They're probably going to do the trilogy if Chris Wade gets past Ryoji Kudo. And with that being said, I do think Chris Wade gets past Ryoji Kudo. Unfortunately for Ryoji Kudo and myself, if you guys don't know, I'm a big fan of Keisuke Sasu. That loss to Keisuke Sasu has not aged very well, like whatsoever. Keisuke Sasu's lost in a row to UFC twice. It's hurt my feelings because I am a big fan of Keisuke Sasu, but he went out there against Brendan Laughnane. Some people thought that he could have even won that fight. He went out there, went to war with Laughnane, had a good striking performance, beat Alejandro Flores by KO, which is a great win, and then he got submitted and taken down by Bubba Jenkins. Got beaten up on the ground by Movlid Khaybulaev, who just can't finish anyone to save himself. But I think in this matchup, Chris Wade, he's got a very obvious path to victory if he wants to use it. And he is a very big favourite because of it. He's -280 to Ryoji Kudo is +220. Now, Ryoji Kudo, as I kind of hinted, he's very dangerous on the feet. Very entertaining fighter to watch when the fight is on the feet. And Chris Wade, he's a very well-rounded fighter. He's kind of got it all going for him. I did pick him to beat Bubba Jenkins because I thought he could keep the fight on the feet and win a decision on the feet. But now I'm going to kind of pick Chris Wade to take Ryoji Kudo to the ground and to win a decision by taking Ryoji Kudo down and controlling him on the ground like we have seen many other fighters do in the PFL as of recently. Like, like Brendan Laughnane fought him on the feet and it was a close fight. And Chris Wade, at this point in his career, he's almost 36 years old. I think he should wrestle Ryoji Kudo. I don't think he should mess around on the feet. I think he should get Ryoji Kudo down, and I'm going to trust him to do that. Now, trusting fighters to take the fight to the ground, it's another one here, Marthin Hamlet versus Sam K. I mean, I really like Sam K because of what he's representing in MMA. He's representing the Pacific Islands in MMA. Unfortunately, he hasn't really had too much success doing so, but it really is kind of cool to put spotlight on MMA to the Pacific Islands. If you guys don't know, I'm from New Zealand, so the islands are just north of us. And it's kind of cool that the Pacific Islands have an international level fighter in Sam K, but it's just unfortunate for Sam K that he's not finding the most success when it comes to fighting fighters who can take him down. And if you do look through his career, kind of most of his wins kind of have come from KO, or if they've come from him being able to win the fight on the feet. He fought against Juan Adams, who had, I believe, John Jones in his corner in that fight, which was interesting. Now he's taking on Marthin Hamlet. If you guys know anything about Marthin Hamlet, he's a Greco-Roman wrestler. He will clinch you up against the cage. Sorry, because I've got a sore throat right now, so I'm breathing so heavy. He will clinch you up against the cage, and he will kind of go for those like Greco-Roman sort of style of takedowns, and he'll get you down to the ground, and he'll work from there. He did that to Muhammad Fakhreddin. He was kind of easily able to submit him, and then he did that to kind of Corey Hendricks. He was kind of able to get him down. The point that I'm trying to make is Marthin Hamlet should be pretty easy for Sam K should be pretty easy for Marthin Hamlet to take down here. Oh man, I just looked at the odds. Marthin Hamlet is minus 1,250 and Sam K is plus 850, which is interesting. But as I was saying, Sam K should be easy for Marthin Hamlet to take down. I think he should take Sam K down and win by submission, probably in the first round. Maybe in the second round, but probably in the first. If Sam K's going to win this fight, he's going to have to come out firing and knock him out in the first. That's kind of how Sam K has to win. Marthin Hamlet at minus 1250. Probably not worth a parlay piece, but if you can get props for the fight, and you can bet Marthin Hamlet submission round 1, Marthin Hamlet submission round 2, that's probably how I would play this fight. And then maybe a little sprinkle on Sam K by KO, maybe Sam K by KO round 1, but I think the value where there's like almost like a really good win to be made is Marthin Hamlet submission round 1, Marthin Hamlet submission round 2. And with that being said, we will move on to the next one. My favorite fighter, Delan Monte, who let me down against Ty Flores, but Delan Monte had a very interesting career last year. Actually, he had a lot of success. You know, he made it into the PFL, got subbed immediately by Antonio Carlos Jr., and then he just KO'd Emiliano Sordi out of nowhere. And then he got a date with Rob Wilkinson booked. And before that fight, I don't know if you guys can recall, I don't know if you guys were watching it live, that fight was delayed because there were no ambulances at the arena. So these guys were just waiting in the cage for like 10 minutes or so, waiting for an ambulance to arrive at the venue so they could fight. It was crazy. And Wilkinson ended up beating him. But and then he lost to Ty Flores. And I thought he should be able to brawl with Ty Flores and beat Ty Flores. And I just don't see him being able to do that to Josh Silveira. If he couldn't brawl and beat up Ty Flores, he's not going to be able to brawl and beat up Josh Silveira. And once again, the odds, I think, reflect that. I'm trying to find the odds right now. That's really awkward. There are no odds for this fight on FightOdds.io or Best Fight Odds. So I think Josh Silveira wins. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to make. You know, he did beat Sam K recently, submitted him. You know, Sam K, poor Sam K. But, you know, before that, you know, it's just kind of too much too soon against Samari Akhmedov. And before that, he was undefeated. I can't remember Josh Silveira's father, but he does have a father who was quite successful in MMA. I believe he maybe like owns American Top Team or something like that, something interesting like that. So Josh Silveira is a guy to keep your eye on. But he should be able to outskill Delan Monte. He's more technical on the feet. He can wrestle, he can grapple. Delan Monte's just a brawler. That's kind of all he's got. I think Silveira probably takes him down and then manages to find a submission like ACJ was able to. But with that being said, though, Delan Monte did come up grappling. So all of a sudden he just fell in love with his hands, I guess. So it should be an interesting fight. The next fight is going to be Bubba Jenkins taking on Sung Bin Jo. And if you don't know who Sung Bin Jo is, he's actually a very exciting fighter from South Korea. I had a lot of fun watching him beat up this guy called Kuki Nakagawa, who was a lot smaller than him, but Sung Bin Jo managed to beat him up and finish him. He did lose to Daniel Tamer and like a one-off UFC thing. I did look into that. Why did he only fight once in the UFC? And it was because Daniel Tamer, the UFC just didn't believe that Tamer was UFC level. And then because Sung Bin Jo lost, they just thought it was too early. They thought that they signed Sung Bin Jo too early on, and then they released him. He was meant to make his PFL debut against Jesus Pinedo, but that eventually didn't work out. I'm not too sure why. But now he's got a much tougher matchup, and in my opinion, probably like a nightmare stylistic matchup in Bubba Jenkins. If you guys don't know who Bubba Jenkins is by now, he just made me look like an idiot. He beat up Chris Wade. Probably the best performance of his career. The issues that Bubba Jenkins has had in the past seem to be gone. You know, like Bubba Jenkins in the past has had cardio issues. He didn't seem to have any cardio issues whatsoever against Chris Wade and just dominated him with the wrestling. And he probably does the same thing to Sung Bin Jo. Sung Bin Jo is a very dangerous and good striker. You know, very good knees in the clinch as well. I believe I believe he knocked out Kuki Nakagawa with a knee to the head. I'm not 100% sure if my memory does serve me correctly, but all I do remember from that fight is Kuki Nakagawa was trying to get him down, and he was a lot smaller than Sungwon Jo. But Sungwon Jo, he has been taken down. He has been controlled in the past. You know, Tyler Diamond was able to get him down a couple of times, and I believe Bubba Jenkins is going to take him down probably a lot. And if he doesn't take him down a lot, it's because he's taken him down and controlled him the whole time. You know, he had a really good performance against Chris Wade in his last fight. His last loss was to Brendan Laughnane in the finals. He's probably going to look to try and make it to the finals again, and I think he does beat Sungwon Jo to get there. You know, he's minus 400 favorite. I like Bubba Jenkins in this fight. There's potential for a finish because I think Bubba Jenkins is going to be so relentless with the wrestling. I think he's going to be so successful with that relentless wrestling, so potentially he could get something going there. But I am going to pick Bubba Jenkins at minus 400. He probably is safe for a parlay. You know, you could probably do him minus 400 with maybe Chris Wade, you know, former opponents, and Impa Kasanganay. They should be plus money. Should be pretty safe. We now move on to the co-main event. Movlid Khaybulaev taking on Tyler Diamond. Movlid Khaybulaev, he's 20-0, and he's a very dominant fighter. But my personal little issue with Movlid Khaybulaev is this guy just cannot finish anyone, man. He does have finishes early on in his career, but he hasn't got a finish since 2020. That was against a 16-10 opponent, you know, and he did KO Damon Jackson in 10 seconds, which was amazing. But after that, you know, he had a really good opportunity to fight a very good stylistic matchup in Ryoji Kudo, who just wasn't as good at grappling as him, wasn't as good at wrestling as him at all. And he couldn't finish him. And I just don't think he's going to finish Tyler Diamond. Now, this is an interesting fight because Tyler Diamond has stepped in on short notice and he hasn't fought for 2 years. He did fight for the UFC once on the Ultimate Fighter. He fought for the Ultimate Fighter and then fought Bryce Mitchell in like the finals. I think he stepped in on short notice because he lost in the house. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a good season. It was the season of the undefeated fighters. But anyway, I got a little bit sidetracked. And then he fought an undefeated guy, very sidetracked again. Tyler Diamond's a well-rounded fighter, but he hasn't fought for 2 years. He hasn't been active throughout his career after the Ultimate Fighter. I'm not too sure if he's dealt with injuries, if he's kind of just been focusing on things outside of fighting, which I can understand, but he just hasn't fought for 2 years. Movlid Khaybulaev is 20-0. He's minus 750. He should be able to beat Tyler Diamond by decision. I just don't see him finishing Tyler Diamond, although Tyler Diamond hasn't fought for 2 years. Khaybulaev should be able to win this fight, but I just don't see him finding finishes, man. I think Khaybulaev wins by decision. I think it will be dominant, like 30-27, dominating with the wrestling. Maybe a somewhat boring fight, but I just think Khaybulaev does win. And now in the main event is Brendan Laughnane versus Jesus Pinedo. It's a fun fight. I think Laughnane probably is being a little bit overrated by the bookies. He's minus 500 in this fight. In my opinion, as I said, I thought Jesus Pinedo beat Gabriel Alves Braga. I do. I mean, I think I'm on an island maybe in that opinion, but hey, it is what it is. Brendan Laughnane, for the most part, is a striker. Jesus Pinedo is kind of only a striker, and he's quite big for 145. You see he's at 6 foot there. He probably is 6 foot. And I will say it again, I personally didn't think that Brendan Laughnane looked all that good against Marlon Moraes. I mean, surely I'm not the only one that thought that when I watched that fight, right? I mean, he did manage to beat Bubba Jenkins, which is a very impressive win. He did beat Chris Wade. Actually, I remember this. Actually, last year he had the weirdest run because he beat Ryoji Kudo. And then he beat Igo Huskic, who took him on short notice, and he couldn't finish him. So, do I think Brendan Laughnane can finish Jesus Pinedo? No, I don't. Brendan Laughlane's a striker, but he doesn't seem to get the most finishes, and it was actually a big surprise when he was able to knock out Bubba Jenkins. But I do think that he probably can beat Jesus Pinedo by decision here. I mean, he's a massive favourite. You probably would expect him to win. I mean, the most of the public thinks that he's going to win by knockout, but I just don't think they've watched a Brendan Laughnane fight before. Brendan Laughnane by decision is the pick. I mean, Jesus Pinedo, I mean, I talked him up a lot, haven't I? But he's, I think I'm overrating him a little bit. I'll be honest, he's kind of purely a striker. And if you do watch his regional fights, which I did do a lot before his PFL debut, he's just fighting guys that are so much smaller than him, man. Like, these guys that he's fighting are way, way, way smaller than Jesus Pinedo. Like, this guy's 6 foot at 145, and he's fighting guys that are just like 5'6", 5'5", like just really small dudes. And he's just beating them up in the first round. He did also actually have a UFC run. I probably should bring this up. Once again, He went 1-1 in the UFC, and I looked into it again, and it was for the same reason why Sung Joe was cut. It was because they just thought that they signed him too early on in his career. I mean, they signed him when he's like 23 years old. And you can kind of understand. But I feel like maybe Jesus Pinedo probably did deserve another opportunity. But now he's in the PFL. He's taking on the former champion. He's got an opportunity to pull off a crazy upset. But I do think Brendan Laughnane should win by decision. It's a very interesting fight, though. Laughnane is a great fighter. I think I might have been a little bit harsh to him. But yeah, I just personally didn't think that he looked that good against Marlon Moraes in that fight. So it'll be interesting to see how this one goes, but for the most part, Brendan Laughnane really should be able to find a win here. I would be very surprised if he got a knockout, personally, but I think that he should be able to win by decision. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and as always, I will see you guys in the next one.